All right. Macro Perspective Pod, guys, we have a great guest on today. Marcus and I are looking forward to this. Jared Hamilton. Jared is a coach, owner, entrepreneur. We connected actually even last year. I've known about Jared. I've kind of been following him a little bit, but we connected at a thing called Coaching Con recently. We've had a few guests from on already. Jared was one of the speakers that went on for this like 10-minute panel of 5 speakers for about an hour. And, when you're kind of there and you pay for a ticket, you're like, I want to hear the Tom Bilyeu's, the Brad Lee. It's like, what are these guys bringing for 10 minutes? Like, by the time Jared was done speaking of his 10 minutes, I was like, why did they only give him 10 minutes? I need 50 more minutes. I need the full hour. And that just shows you how close-minded I was of what was going on. But I want to just say, I really love the talk that Jared was talking about. Is really about building an identity. And if there was only one thing I did take away from that 4-day, 3-day weekend, was his conversation. Actually, it wasn't about the tactics or strategies and tools of how to become a better coach or like all this. It was who you need to become. And Jared, I just wanted to say, man, thanks so much for that combo. And really thanks so much for what you had said, because you really blew me away with the 10 minutes. And that's why I had to get you on here. But can you please introduce yourself your way and just kind of talk about what you're doing and, anything like that?
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, thank you for that intro. That was fucking dope, dude. That was surreal. Like, speaking of Coaching Con was incredible. I've got some goals that I have like that are on the list that I haven't achieved yet. Is I got some big public speaking goals. I love speaking. It's one of my favorite things ever. So, but that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And I wish I had more than 10 minutes. I was like, there's a moment I look down and I go, I have 2 minutes left. And so then I had to like fire through the rest of it. But, for those who don't know me, my name is Jared Hamilton. I'm 31. Kind of my normal intro I tell people is like the stuff that doesn't have to do with like fitness and weight losses. I have 3 dogs. I'm a dog dad times 3. I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a podcast host. So I love talking, basically is what it is. From the Midwest, but my claim to fame, if we want to call it that, is I'm really good at helping people never struggle losing weight ever again. That's my big like punchline. Like everyone helps people like can get you lose weight and all that stuff. My big thing is I just hate the struggle. I just hate it when people spend their entire lives struggling and then inadvertently, for most people, settling when they're like, oh, I guess I'm just not meant to get on the other side. And it's just the worst thing ever. Like settling, dude, is like my kryptonite. I hate it when people settle in like a marriage, settle with like a livelihood, settle with anything. The only reason I'm where I'm at and why I was asked to speak on the stage, even at Coaching Con, because that was a business event, right? That wasn't a like a nutrition talk. It was how to scale a coaching business kind of event. It was because of the success I've had in business. But ultimately, there's no reason I should even be where I'm at. I came from a poor family in a really small town that half of the population was on drugs. I was an undereducated, homeschooled kid that missed out on a lot, man. So, but I took that concept of, I don't want to settle. Is I found, to be honest, I remember a few specific moments in my life where I use it's the one way I tell people to use comparison is I found some dumb motherfuckers who accomplished some shit. And I go, if they can do it, I can do it, and and that was it. But I there's that part of me never left, even when I help people. I hate it when people are they're stuck because they're struggling, but then they take on the identity of, oh, I'm a struggler. I'm just not meant for this. Well, then it's over. Then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy from then on out. So.
Frick, man. Damn, better than my intro. That was fire. I definitely agree with the struggle. Okay, here's the thing about that comparing, because I just want to touch on that. I think a lot of people are saying like, hey, don't compare yourself to others. Obviously, like comparison is a thief of joy. I'll just be 100% real with you. Some people do not chase pleasure. So when they say compare yourself, like they're not talking about it from a pleasure point. They're talking about it from a pain point. And here's the thing. Most entrepreneurs, most coaches, like, use the damn pain. Like if you're comparing yourself to someone you want to be and it hurts you that you're not there, use that to motivate you. I think people want to block emotions out of negativity or comparison or thieves of joy, whatever it is, and realize like you can utilize that. Like I have a list of hate. I hated the moments that people put me down. I hated the moments that I was bullied. I hate the moments like you're talking about, like growing up and not knowing where my certainty of future is, hating, certain things. And it's like, use that, because sometimes pleasure is not enough. It really isn't.
So I think people fall into two categories, and psychology supports this. That most people either fall into either camp A, or it's almost like, would you rather do you play to win or not to lose? Those are two
Yeah.
very different things, right? It's some people are driven more off of pursuit of pleasure versus some are driven off more of avoidance of pain. But that's really the two causes of humans making decisions and moving things. Case in point, why do people go to jobs they hate? Is because going to their 9 to 5 they hate hurts less than getting evicted. Paying your taxes, paying Uncle Sam hurts less than going to jail for tax fraud, right? So everything comes down to, like, to be honest, what hurts less. That's almost every decision we make in our life. This is how we help clients when they say, I know what to do, but I just don't do it. It's because you're not in enough pain, or you are unaware of what's on the table if you stay stuck. One of my favorite analogies is, do you guys ever remember the old Christmas movie with Mr. Scrooge? Like old school, like
oh,
you know what I'm talking about? Like where like angel, like,
Isn't it a Christmas Story? Is that the name of the
yeah, Christmas Story. It's the one with Scrooge. Well, this is like case in point. What this is about is, when did Scrooge change his perspective on life and his actions change? It's when the last ghost of like Christmas yet to come or whatever came in and said, look, motherfucker, if you don't get your shit together, this is what's on the table for you. And he's like, they don't care about me anymore. They don't love me. They don't care that they're talking shit about me and I just died. And it got real because it hurt so bad. And as soon as that bastard woke up, he changed his life. And I know it's a goofy analogy, but that's the thing is, it's like when people say you have to hit your rock bottom to change your life. It's sometimes I had a call with someone the other day that was applying for coaching, but most people sabotage on those calls. And they're just like, oh, I got to think about it. Like that conversation. And I told her, and she was like going back and forth on whether she wanted to sign up. And I'm totally detached. I don't, whether someone wants to sign up, that's whatever. I don't play the hard sales game, but I told her, I said, maybe you need to go lose 30 or gain 30 more pounds. Maybe it doesn't hurt bad enough yet. I literally told her that on the phone. She's like, I just can't decide. I go, cool. I don't want to play the hard convincing game, but it just sounds like you may not be in enough pain yet. You might need to go gain 30 more pounds this year and then come back and talk to me. The problem is, we're going to have a whole new subset of issues because you're going to have so much negative momentum when you already hate the way you look and feel. Imagine you're going to gain 30 more pounds on top of that, another year of fucked up conditioning, another year of had bad habits that are getting comfy and living in your house.
Yeah.
Needless to say, she signed up for coaching.
So she closed, I'm sure.
Right. But like,
she closed.
But that's the truth is, she had a moment. She goes, oh, wow, maybe I would just hate to gain another 30 pounds. And guess what? She signed up. And it wasn't because I'm like trying to like specifically like manipulate her to sign up, but I was just being real. I said, maybe you're not in enough pain. Like, I know you said you've struggled with this for 30 years, but maybe you need to go gain 30 more pounds this year. Some people do that, but she decided she didn't want that. But like, that's the big thing is, even Tony Robbins talks about it. The number one cause of making better decisions is avoidance of pain. There's actually a story I heard from Tony Robbins. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan.
Same.
Have you ever heard about how he got his kids early on to decide to never do drugs? Did you ever hear this?
Didn't he make them like I remember there was a story once, it's like he just made him smoke like a 30-pack cigarette or something like that, or that was like another story.
I think that was someone else. He made them go to like basically it was basically, I don't think it was just it wasn't a homeless shelter, because like not obviously to say all homeless people do drugs isn't accurate, but he went to like I think maybe a rehab facility, basically a place where there was like 50 people who were hardcore addicted to drugs and really struggling, and he had them go help there. So there's like the servant part, but it was also, hey, if you start to do drugs and become an alcoholic and struggle, this is what's on the table for you.
Yeah.
And it was such a perception of potential pain. That was it was, if in the world of pain or pleasure, it was avoidance of potential pain is what that was. And he says it. I wanted them to see what was on the table and how terrible their life will be if they don't keep their shit together. And their kids never did drugs. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, I actually have something written down on a paper one of my clients mentioned, and it's exactly kind of what you described. There are two motivating factors for people: the desire for gain or the fear of loss. And that is it, right? Like, and I had a reference, like, I wrote it down somewhere. Where the hell is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when he said that to me, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And most of the time in our profession with our main job, we're generally, I think nowadays it's changed, but in the past it was people that had a health scare, right? they had a scare, and that had then motivated them to then
Yeah.
finally, take the plunge into a program that's going to help them facilitate their health, right? And they're like, oh my God, it wasn't quite the big one. You're like, you can't live with that thought process though. Like it's not going to eventually sneak up on you, right? So
Totally.
I like that. I like, oh, I guess you need to go gain 30 more pounds and get more uncomfortable before you decide to close today, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you already made this call, right? What were you hung up on? Was it the cost? No, I doubt it. It probably already knew what you were charging or somewhere near it, right?
Sure. Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, right. And that's the thing is when it comes to all of it, what that is that's just from a psychological side, that's just sabotage. Here's the thing people have to realize about, like, we all hear the buzzword sabotage or subconscious sabotage, but it's one of my favorite things to talk about is most people don't realize the number one trigger for sabotage to happen is you are making progress. Sabotage doesn't kick you when you're down. It actually shuts off. It's like the thermostat on your wall. If your thermostat is set at 70 and your room temperature is 70, it kicks off. It's only when you forget and leave the door open on a sunny day and the house heats up to 80, thermostat kicks on and regulates the room. Well, it's no different with all of this stuff. It's, if we want to tie it to identity, your mental thermostat is I'm a fat piece of shit, or I'm never motivated, or I'm a binge eater, or I'm a whatever the identity is.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now you have results that supersede your identity. Let's say your identity is I'm a binger. Well, if you've gone 3 weeks without binge eating, the identity's the identity's threatened. Well, now it's got to like fix it, and it's got to sabotage it back to here. And so that's why I was telling people a lot on the phone is like, yo, do you think you might be sabotaging right now? Because here's the thing, like when you guys like us, we've all been in this game of transforming people for a long time. So we know we could do it with our eyes closed. So we know what all this stuff looks like. And that's half the key to sabotage, is seeing it way ahead of time. You know what it looks like, smells like, talks like. It's like if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and waddles like a duck, I bet it's a fucking duck, So, but what happens is, like, it's the thing with sabotage is it's so sneaky. It's so seductive. Like a really grotesque analogy is it's seduction, not rape. It's makes it seem like a really good idea. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. Yeah. I want to just kind of put you on pause there for a second, Jared, but like you were just talking about sabotage, and I had to call out a client today. I just had a call right before this, and I didn't even coach him. Did not even coach him on fitness or nutrition. I literally just said to him, I'm like, I'm really just hearing you say, and he was saying things like, I'm just not a person that does schedules. I'm not a person that knows how to put workouts down on paper. I'm not a person that I just go with the flow. That's who I am. And I'm like, I'm just going to stop you right there. Before we move forward with like any fitness or nutrition protocols or recovery protocols, I really think we need to identify these key words of yours and who you think you really are. And he goes like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I just hear you saying like, you're not this person. And you keep saying, I'm not this, I don't do this. And I'm like, how do you think that's helping you right now? And he's like, oh, you know what? You're right. I've been kind of working on this with my mentor. But this is so true. Like, I feel like I keep saying that. I'm like, okay, cool. How about we change it to like, yes, I struggle with a schedule. Yes, I struggle with workouts, yet I'm still going to show up. How about that? And like, he was like, oh yeah, sure. And then I gave him some actionable steps. Hey, this is what we need to do. I feel like sometimes people's their words are so powerful that like it sabotages them, not just their identity, but their words too, because it is linked to their identity of how they say what they say, because their words are so concrete to them. They fulfill that expectation. Like, I am this person. So they become that. No ifs and or buts. There's nothing to change their mind. You got to call it out as it is. And it's like, oh, come on, man. You're sabotaging yourself before we even start.
Well, absolutely. And that's the thing, because words have meaning to us, and then meanings cause emotions, and then emotions dictate actions, right? Like that. It's all this giant cycle. But this brings up a really good topic, a really good concept. It's what I call, I'll explain this to clients, like the difference between a noun and a verb, as in like, so one I use a lot is, let's say, binge eating. A lot of people come to us who struggle with binge eating and stuff like that. But there's a difference between binge eating versus binger. Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. It sounds like I'm just, playing like word definitions, but no, like if someone says I'm a binger, that's a noun. That's who you are. And then your subconscious mind defends and guards your who you think you are by all costs. Right. It's why we sabotage. It's why I mentioned it in my talk, is your business is a reflection of who you think you are. So if you think you're this worthless piece of shit that shouldn't earn money, well, then you're going to sabotage your business. It's the same thing with relationships, money, weight loss. It doesn't matter what it is. But I'll explain to clients like who's struggling with binge eating. There's a difference between binge ate and binger. Those that one's a verb. It's something you did. That's it. I put on my hat. I'm podcasting with you fellows. It's just a thing I did or I'm doing. Versus binger, that's where we get crazy. That's where it's like it's who you are. It's just it's the essence of like who I am, right? Like people go, I'm a father, I'm a dog dad, I'm a husband. Like those are character traits of who you are, but people throw binger in that or the thing you're struggling with as an identity. But here's where it gets scary. If your identity is made up of things you don't like about yourself that you are working on changing, you are on an uphill battle you're never going to win. We are on autopilot 90% of the day. So imagine fighting an enemy. You can't see 90 minutes out of every 100 minutes. Like he's going to win. So if you're on autopilot 90% of the day and your identity is this thing you don't like about yourself, you don't have enough bandwidth to change it if it stays your identity, because then every time you make some progress, the identity is threatened. It's going to kick on and sabotage the fuck out of it when you go on autopilot again. This is why people diet for decades. It's why people yo-yo. It's why people live the same shitty year for 40, 50, 60 years at a time, is because your brain only cares about self-preservation, not happiness. That's just how it works. This is why in weight loss, people really aren't up against calories and workouts and shit like that. Like it's a part of it, but they're actually up against years of old conditioning trying to keep them safe.
God damn. Can we just do a mic drop moment there? Marcos, where's that like sound?
Wait, is it? Oh no, that's the laugh track button. Oh no, one of those ones.
We'll figure it out.
I love it.
But no, when you're saying that though, the identification, we had a recent guest that described like the identity card more or less, right? Which we have to like go get laminated and it's your goal, and you write it in the present tense. I am an individual who has multiple 7-figure businesses, right? Like, and then behind that is all those character traits then you would then need in order to be this most successful version of yourself living in that moment. I doubt that anybody identifies with any of those things, that noun that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately went right to there. I was like, none of that stuff defines my card, right? And I think that it's again, self-fulfilling prophecy is something that is literally, it's how you frame your mind every single day, right? I am the type of person on Mondays and Fridays, I go and get up for at least an hour walk, right? Like that's who I am. That's who I want to be. Why did that get developed? Well, Mondays and Fridays were the days that I couldn't work out because my wife had to go to school like 3 or 4 years ago. Now she's into her new role where she works on one of those days, right? So, you're constantly refining and identifying places where you have to, shift a little bit based on your environment. And honestly, it's like your life needs a quarterly audit. I don't care who you are. Every quarter something's changing, right? Maybe it's your ambitions, maybe it's your body composition, maybe it's things that are motivating you with training. It doesn't matter. But I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've now identified. It's like, hey, at the end of the last quarter, what did I do? What did I do well? What did I not do so well? What can help me improve in this next quarter? Right. I've even identified a great business that I think I want to even dive into at some point as well. And it's basically being an auditor / coach where, hey, we all know that people see a better result when they have to report to somebody. What do people generally struggle with? Keeping tabs of their taxes and their expenses. So meet with a coach that does that for you once a month, pay them whatever you think is fair. You're going to be so ahead of the game by literally January 1st of 2024, you can submit your tax return instead of waiting until the deadline, right?
Sure.
So, right, like, but again, identifying these things and defining new character traits it's part of the fun. Like life would be boring if you just had it all figured out in my eyes.
Yeah. See, I would go so far when it comes to this stuff. I think a quarterly audit is actually too long. This will show you how much of a psycho I am. Ever since oh no, I'm about to really show you how much of a psycho I am. Whenever I actually didn't transfer these over when I got a new phone, but I need to. I was doing identity checks on the hour. So no, but real talk. Well, here's why. Well, here's what happened. Because technology's dope. It's like if a client says, "Oh, I forget to drink my water," I'm like, "Bro, you have a reminders app that you can set off every hour to tell you to drink your fucking water. Like you can automate your life." Well, what I would do is, whenever if there's an identity issue I'm struggling with, like around this stuff, I would literally go into my reminders app and just have it chime on the hour, every hour, to check my identity or to check whatever state I'm in or whatever it is. Because what would happen is we're on auto. This is because what we're up against is we're on autopilot 90% of the time, because the only time identity work truly works, and I hope everyone's listening, like what I'm about to say, is when we hold our actions to our new identity, and everything we do comes through that filter. Because this is why, like, don't get me wrong, affirmations are dope, but affirmations without new action actually has been proven to make your identity worse. Because now you're a person who fails. You're a person who doesn't do what they say they do. Because we all have this internal bullshit meter. It's like, I'm a bad motherfucker, but yet you don't do any of the stuff you said you do. Oh, I love myself, but you have a horrible history of showing up for yourself. So we have this bullshit meter that goes, no, you're not. Right? Yeah. It's like when people hate themselves, they go, I love myself. There's this internal voice that goes, you're full of shit. But when you have a stack of evidence and your actions, because it changes everything. An example I use all the time. I know if I went deaf, I know my wife loves me because she shows it in her actions. Right. It's when people, this is why when someone's like, oh, just love yourself. I'm like, you tell a depressed person to just love themselves, it's worthless. It's like with someone who binge eats, just say, oh, just be more mindful. That's like, it's not helpful. So it's the actions that have to change, because then, like I mentioned on my talk, you're going to have a stack of irrefutable proof that you are who you say you are. Now things really start to change because your actions are showing. It's creating new neural pathways. Now your brain protects those neural pathways. All this crazy shit happens. So I took that to a crazy level where I was getting notifications on the hour to check my identity, because people go, oh yeah, that's the version of me. Then 5 minutes later, they slip back to who they thought they were. But imagine if you had a coach every hour that's like, hey, how are your thoughts? What are you thinking? How is your posture? How are you standing? What internal dialogue is happening in your head? Like, imagine if Ed Milet was with you once an hour. If Ed Milet called you for 5 minutes on the hour, we would all be in different places. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And like, I love what you were saying there too about, like, I love the intensity of it. Like, just like, I love that analogy of like the water check. It's like, yeah, it's the same thing. Can you just do a water check every hour? It's the same thing with the mindset check. But I love the congruency part. Your mind knows bullshit. It will sniff it out. And if you're acting in accordance with your old identity, but you want to become a new one, and you're saying, I am that new identity, it's like, no, you're not. And then that's where that turmoil kind of comes in, where it's like, I think right now we're in a digital age, and like, I love everything that's coming out. There's always new knowledge, but I coach a lot of men and I coach a lot of people where it's like, I don't need you to know everything. I don't need you to go down a rabbit hole on YouTube. I don't need you to go down a rabbit hole of books. I need you to work on 1, 2, and 3. I need you to implement it this week. And they're like, well, coach, that's not even the perfect meal plan. I heard from this guy, this is the perfect meal plan. And I'm like, just do it. Because here's the thing, you're going to create momentum. And here's the thing, like we said, we're going to iterate. We're going to check on it. Hey, at the end of this week, did we move forward or did we move back? Okay, cool. 1, 2, and 3 not working. We're going to give you a new 1, 2, 3, right? Until we get to it. And then when we find the 1, 2, 3 that do work, that's your fitness, your nutrition, your recovery, whatever it is, we're going to run it to the ground. We're going to run it until your new identity starts hitting a wall again. And then we got to iterate again. And sometimes people are, in my opinion, paralysis by analysis, right? They're just like, I need this, I need the perfect answer. I'm like, there is no perfect answer, because it's all down to the individual, and you really have to do a good job of just acting. Like you said, implement, or you said, instead of affirmations, because as much as you can say what you want, if you're not in congruence with your ego, your brain, and the actions, you're going to throw yourself into a loop of despair, doubt. And that's what we don't want. We want to show again, hey, look, this is a pedigree that's going up. It's up and down, kind of like up and down, like the markets, it's not a straight line. It might not always be a hockey stick effect, but there will become a moment where it's just unstoppable momentum, right? There will become a time where you look back and you go 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, 4 years, 5 years, and you go, holy shit, look what I just did. What else can I do?
No, absolutely. Well, that's the thing is people don't realize that when you're fixing a relationship, the relationship you have with yourself, that's what we're talking about. That's what your identity is. It's no different
Mhm.
than a relationship with anyone else. What happens if we went to our marriages or friendships and you said one thing, but your actions were not in alignment at all? Hey, I'll be over to your house to help you watch your kid at noon, and I show up at 5. Well, now we got issues. Hey, bro, I'm going to meet you at Starbucks. Coffee's on me. And I just don't show up. All of a sudden, you're going to lack trust in me now because
Yeah.
it's like I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are too loud. It's that kind of conversation. It's no different with us because here's the pattern most people fall down. Like weight loss is the best example. It's like, okay, I'm going to start over Monday. Then they don't. And then all of a sudden they quit. Like I was just talking to the lady the other day. She's like, I've failed so many times. I've quit telling my friends on when I'm starting. Then they could not only quit telling themselves, they quit saying it out loud because they feel like such a failure. Then they quit even having the internal dialogue of starting. Then they quit starting because they're so tired of failing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's so pivotal that your actions are in alignment with who you say you are, which is irrelevant of emotions. It's why on my talk I said, stop thinking, how do I get? But it's then who do I have to become who gets? Because when you make the goal of is achievement, losing the weight, making the money, whatever, the problem is you're not thinking about who you have to become, who gets that. The goal should actually be who do you have to become? Getting should be a side effect of becoming versus getting being the goal.
Yeah. No.
Dang right. That's literally motto to live by for me is just don't talk about it, just be about it, you know? Like anytime I say something, it's more about the action. Just do the action.
Yeah.
Just do the dang thing over and over again. And inevitably you know, sometimes if you throw enough shit at a wall, something will stick, right?
Totally.
Like, you know, and you don't even know what it is until you try a multitude of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's honestly why personally I continue to love to compete in CrossFit because I want to learn how to do things better, but also be like minimum dose response relationship with my training.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't train CrossFit anymore for the example here. I see an event that's happening locally. And again, I'm not like big fish or anything. Like, I'm not going to the next level of the games because that's like a past life for me. But I want to see if like my current training methodologies and my current knowledge base can be tested, you know, every so often.
Sure.
Either it's with my wife, so that's like a joint venture where we're both, you know, doing something together, or a team like I did this last weekend. And I modified my training for 8 weeks, and I looked back at what I didn't do well with my wife, which was fucking running and zone 2 cardio. So I spent a lot of time incorporating something I sucked at to get better, you know, for myself in the next event. And it did pay dividends. I did feel a lot better. The recovery felt better on the day of. And now I did find some other weaknesses too. And I was telling Seamus this, like my lactate training was non-existent. And the first event we did, I mean, I wanted to puke. I had to take me 40 minutes to recover from that, dude. Like I was telling you about it, Seamus. It was literally
Dude, fartleks and thresholds, brother. Fartleks and thresholds, bro.
well, I mean, I thought I was prepared for that because I used to just be that athlete, and then you switch a little bit, and it's like
You
there's
switch a little bit, dude. The specificity, bro.
this.
It's so tight.
Oh, I know, but like, but I mean, testing theories and ideas, and I again, like you just said, no longer being able to even articulate like what you want or that you're doing this thing. I think it boils down to maybe that individual not having anybody to communicate anything with, anything
Sure.
worth it. Their circle of influence is so, you know, so small, right? They don't have enough people in their corner that are maybe better than them, and because they like, oh, that person is better than me at this thing, whether it's dieting or fitness success or whatever, they're not going to want to pass that on to me. I was like, truth be told, they probably want to. They're not going to go seeking it to you until you're willing to receive it.
Sure.
Right? It's almost
Yeah,
like a gratitude practice, right? Like the better you become at showing gratitude to other people, the more they will reciprocate, or vice versa, right? Like the science behind it, actually, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a very interesting thing how like our psychology and our minds can completely warp our perspective just simply based off of like, yeah, I'll start Monday. Guess I'm never starting, right?
Mhm.
Well, what's going to motivate you? Is it going to be a cash prize? That's fine. I mean, you know, sometimes that's what you need to do to get your ass off the couch. That's why we created a little challenge group. I literally positioned this challenge for Seamus and other people that were just in our, we'll say, social media circle of influence, right? Because I wanted to be better for myself, and I knew that bringing people along for the ride will help me stay more committed,
Sure.
right? In the first 3 weeks, I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of failed, but because I had another goal, I needed to finish this CrossFit comp first. So I didn't put all of my eggs in that like weight loss basket right away. I was trying to balance two things. But now today is like, I feel like, okay, I've accomplished my other goal, right? It was podium or bust, right? Got that win, got the W. Now it's time to win these other things. Got to get shredded by my birthday.
No, man, it's so funny that you bring that. I think the biggest thing is sometimes people talking about the identity and shifting and taking iterations. It's like sometimes you may put a little too much on the plate, right?
Mhm,
Spinning too many plates at once. And I like what you said there, Marcos. Like, hey, I'm going to do this CrossFit thing, then do this thing.
mhm,
And I think that's true. I think sometimes when it comes to like a weight loss goal, I think a lot of people get too overwhelmed by it because they kind of go, oh, I have to do this diet. I have to do this type of training. It's like, no, chill, focus on the big pillar movements, right? If it really is, hey, you just need to eat like this or you need to move like this, don't necessarily look at it as like, and I love what you said though, like, hey, I wasn't winning, but I was doing. You
mhm.
don't need to win at it, right? You don't need to be there consistently. I was just telling someone this the other day too. It's like, be a 7 out of 10 every day on whether it's workouts, how you go to work or something like that. Because people are always like, I love Tony Robbins. I've done his UPW. It's like change of state. And I love being able to change your state. I think, but for some people that don't understand how to change your state like that, I think I like to tell them, hey, be a 7 out of 10 every day when you show up. Why? Because when the 10 out of 10 moments happen and you are hot, guess what? You're gonna run it. You're gonna run it. Whether it's like a sales call or hey, you're killing it with your business meetings. Or if you're a 4 out of 10, well, guess what? You're not too far off from that 7 for you to feel off because it's not about the feelings of running hot or staying low. It's just a consistency, right? It's just a consistency, showing up and breaking that identity, showing up, making that new identity, making those actions. So thanks for sharing, Marcos. That's way to win that, by the way. Way to win that, by the
Nice,
way.
man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, this, I mean, this, it's something that you can still hold near and dear to you, and it's like I still want to be that person. The thing that got me off the couch, the motivating factor, started, I mean, in college. The thing that kept it going, that journey, the journey that everybody seeks for, was the competitive element, right? That I did. I remember the first competition. That thing happened on. It was at Las Vegas High School. This high school is famous because Bryce Harper went there, right? So everybody knows of this high school. It was on their track. I did a competition, and it demoralized me. Me with a partner, and I was like, okay, like either again, I can go work and get better at these things, running, whatever it was, being outdoors, testing different, whatever it is. I was super young. I didn't even know about like energy systems, to be real with you, at the time. Right. Um, but I was like, man, that was just so much fun. I just want to keep having fun with it. And to this day, anytime I have a great experience, and sometimes it's with a win, sometimes it's with maybe I'm not good enough for that particular day. It happens. I continue to go back and support the people that help make the journey worthwhile. Right.
Yeah.
And as of this weekend, 2019 was the last time this particular event happened because of COVID. It was at a high school, right? All the volunteers were high school students. So, my mission now, moving into, my 30s, is to give back to the community that paved the road for me to like become moderately successful, right? So I was able to provide 50 meals to this event for all the volunteers and students that were, dedicating a Saturday, a day off of being at school for this event to go down. And it was the dopest experience. And I'm like, I look forward to bettering the community, even more with going back and actually sitting down with the students, feeding them again and their families actually this time, and hopefully having them to continue to make small little tweaks to their health, right? Being the person's like, oh, remember that time that coach went in and spent his time there in our after school hours, right? No one else wants to do that. Pick up the legwork. Be that person. Be that spark in your community, right? I mean, I think Andrew Fasell talks about this all the time. He's like, be the person, be the voice of change, right? Right? Why not me? That's how I look at it now. Why not me? No
Hmm.
one else is going to want to do it. All it takes is an email or a text or a phone call, and then just simply showing up and doing it. And every time it gets better and better. When you said about your public speaking arrangements and getting better at that, that's your goal. I'm the same person right now. I don't even know where it is at this point, but each time I feel like I get a little bit better.
Hmm.
And hopefully it's like if I get one person in the crowd to come up to me afterwards or to ask a good question or say that it resonated with them, that's all it takes. Right.
Hmm.
And I still remember Jay Cutler, bodybuilder Jay Cutler, did this at my middle school, like probably in his peak. Didn't even know who the dude was. It was like back like when he was Olympia, right? And I was like, oh, Jay Cutler, the quarterback, like the football player, because that's where my head went at the time.
Right.
Only now to know that this dude was probably actually more famous than that Jay Cutler. And he told the story. And I was like, man, that's insane. Like this dude literally, he's like, I'll go to Costco. You know, most people get like a crate of eggs, you know, 5 dozens. I get the whole shipping pallet. That's like 1 week's worth of meat for me. And I was like, to this day, that story resonates. And now that I know more about nutrition, I'm like, that's absurd. What the hell is he doing with that many eggs?
Yeah, he caught he was the reason for the inflation, dude. He's the reason.
No, but I mean, like he came through, and a lot of people will do that. Small little things, small little wins could resonate with that one kid. And little unique situations like that, whether it's an after school event or an in school seminar or something like that, you remember that because it broke up your day from this monotony, right? And no one told me the secret, but I would have to say you have to get comfortable with monotony in your adult life because there's a lot of monotony to it. And the more comfortable you are understanding that that's a part of growing up, the better you can become trying to break out of it on a moment's notice as well, right? Why does everybody need a vacation every quarter or so, you know, or at least once a year to then be re-inspired to go back to their 9 to 5? Well, they're not comfortable in finding a monotony or a cadence of their day to day. It's something they want to be living, right? And I honestly like, as much as I want a vacation more so for, you know, just turning off for a little while, I would relive my day over and over again because it's always interesting and genuine conversation. It's trying to help people better themselves. Generally has good food, right? And it's constantly changing one small goal at a time. That's it. That's the life I want to live.
Progress, baby, progress. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. You know, I was talking with my brother about this. Like, he was like, "This is what I would do if I won, like the Mega Millions or something." We were just kind of talking, and I was like, I said, "Here's what I would do. I would literally do everything just 10 times better. Right? Wake up, train with the sickest home gym. You know, but then just impact people at a higher level. Right? Make this.
You wouldn't have a
progress.
home
Because
gym, you lying ass. You would have you would build a facility and complex to get people in there.
yeah, no, I would. And you know what, like what I would really do is like, I am living my dream already, if that makes sense. It's like, if it was a vacation for me personally, it's the same thing. It's just to go somewhere, to maybe, yeah, manage a little bit of time away from it. Cause I think there is importance in that, being away from the thing that is your muse. But also at the same time, understanding that like that my day-to-day actions, the 4 things I really just focus on are my health, my wealth, my relationships, and my happiness. And if I could just do that every day, even a little bit with a little bit of progress, like I'm happy, you know. I know I'm making impact. I know I'm hitting on that door. I'm knocking on it every single day, and I'm just going in there and I'm asking, hey, Seamus, what are you made of? What are you really made of? How can you do more? How can you serve more? How can you be more of impact? And if those questions keep coming up for me every day, you know, sometimes like for me, I sometimes go like, yeah, you're right. A vacation for somebody is just because they want to escape, like that escapism. For me, it's like, dude, I find so much pleasure in doing this. I find so much pleasure in my work that I'm like, that's what makes me happy, you know, like, and like to escape from it. Sometimes it would be like weird. Like, why am I trying to escape from that? Like, you know, so I kind of have my thoughts on that, but yeah.
Yeah. And so Jared, you said you're 31. 3 dogs, no kids. Not yet
0
on the horizon.
I'm fixed. We'll put it that way. So no,
Mark,
yeah, no kid.
You're
So
taking testosterone, is what you're saying? I'm not kidding.
that too. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so
Cool.
no, so I'm I am on TRT. That's this past year. That's fucking glorious. Found out my test was like barely 300. For whatever reason.
Yeah,
And
it's a little clinically low, bro.
no, not according to my doctor, which I don't like her very well. Just
well, we
normal
work in the field of longevity. Anytime we see
I
someone's numbers, I'm like, what the fuck?
yeah. Well, it's what I expect from a normal like practice doctor. They don't. Yeah. So it's like mom says no, you go ask your dad. So mom, the doctor said no. So I just went to a buddy of mine who happens to own a HRT clinic. So I go, hey, let's make this shit happen. And so
are you just doing your labs private now then? Are you just doing your
no,
labs
he does them.
private
So
okay, good.
yeah, no, so they do it all. They they do my labs, and then like they actually like I actually have low test to, otherwise they're not going to give it to me. It's
no, they're
so,
they're yeah.
But with the kid thing, I actually I got fixed last year, year and a half ago. So your boy is snipped. So
I mean,
I have a good story about that.
Fun fact, if you ever want to upset all of Instagram, because like, so I just talk about my entire life on Instagram, like it's just for personal branding, right? So I was fully open about everything that went on. If you ever want to see your engagement quadruple and piss off half of Instagram, go get snipped and talk about it. It's great.
Marcos, go ahead.
I'll do it right now. We'll do this as a clip because he's saying that it's going to 4x my engagement.
Bro, clip this.
No, well, the funniest thing is that, so my buddy, he told the story about his friend is the urologist, and he told his vasectomy story. He's like, yeah, bro, I'll just come to your house and I'll just snip you up right there. He's like, bro,
no.
He's like, bro, I'm going to your fucking office. Like, this is a medical procedure. He's like, it's not that serious. I can cauterize you. I take it all with me. And I laughed so hard at the story and the like his interpretation of the story, because they're buddies, obviously, that I went there. Sure enough, dude, the dude is like top of his game. He had like 4 residents there, like watching it. I had literally 8 people staring at my cojones, you know? Like it was a glorious experience. I was like, this is the most male action my balls have probably ever seen.
Wow.
Right?
Just dialed in.
You know, he's over here taping it to the side, and I was like, all right, you're gonna like shave me too? Like, what's going on?
That's amazing.
And I tell this story because the first one, first he squeezes, the sack, and then he's like about to do the first like injection to numb it. And I was like, okay, like that wasn't that bad. And then he's like fishing around with the hook. The first one does it, I smelled the burning flesh, whatever. And I was like, okay, like I'm cool. I can handle it. I'm okay. Then he has to fish out the second one.
It's the worst.
And he pulled my soul out of me. Literally had a vagal response. I'm sweating like a hog. My hands were so clammy. I was like, can you guys get me like a wet rag? Like I'm about to go night night. You know what I mean? I was like, if that's like the male equivalent of maybe rearing a child, I think that's the only way we could really kind of like understand that like pain of something happening down there. I was like, yeah, I can't even imagine what women go through. Like give them the epidural, give them all the codeine, give them all everything they want. Because that was like something where I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
So mine wasn't like that. Mine hurt. Mine wasn't quite that bad, but mine was actually in a medical office, not like in a
no, mine wasn't at home. No, that was the
I thought you said yours was like
I chose the urologist because
got it.
Just go to your house and just do it there. No problem. And he's like, yeah. So just the fact that he had humor was why I went to him.
Oh, I got you. I thought you were like, no, I had it done in my living room, bro. It was great. So it's like, like some people go get janky tattoos. They like if someone buys a tattoo gun off Amazon, they're like, yeah, let me just come over and I'll like hit it real quick. So I thought it was like that, but for vasectomies. So mine didn't hurt that bad. Like I like jolted one really good one. She said I was feel pressure. Yeah, that was more than pressure. Now I don't know this, and I don't know, this might upset some of the female listeners. Like when you said like comparing to weight loss, or not weight loss, to birth. I've heard, I don't know how you could measure this. I've heard it's actually a guy passing a kidney stone is the closest to a woman giving birth, because we're not supposed to have things in our channel. Like
that makes sense. Yeah.
Fun fact though, if we're talking about fucked up vasectomy stories, mine was actually really funny. So mine was like picture perfect. It was like in and out 20 minutes. It was no issues, that kind of thing. Well, as I'm getting stitched up down under, the doctor, the urologist goes, were you a trainer here in town like a decade ago? And I go, I was, because before I got online, I was an in-person trainer and I worked for like 3 different gyms. So she goes, weren't you a trainer here before in town? And I go, like a decade ago, but I was. And she goes, I thought your name was familiar on your consult. She goes, I'm pretty sure you were my trainer. And I go, what's your, because she had like a mask on and like I hadn't seen her in a decade. And I go, well, what was your name? Because it was like Dr. So-and-so. And she like pulled it down. She's like, Paula. And I go, well, that's a small world. I taught you how to squat and your balls deep in my balls. So imagine like a client holding your shit, like stitching it up. So that happened. Again, not for those listening, not a current client. Like this was a lady I was a trainer for like 10 years ago.
That's the referral network right there. You know what?
Right.
That is, man. That's the power of your network, brother. Like, hey, you got my squat, I got your balls.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good that, I mean, maybe it does, maybe you said it right. Like it kind of gets a stigma. It's like, oh, well, why aren't you choosing to have kids, Jared? You know, and people will get all mad at you for that. You're like, well, I just feel like it's not in my best interest because,
Yeah.
you know, I have other things and other goals and aspirations that I want to amount to. And
Mhm.
I think, you know, in a second, you know, if the first full-time job being dad is not something that was in the cards for me. And or I assume, you said your wife, right? You're
Mhm.
married. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, obviously I get that question from, we get the birth control question from the OB or whatever, the delivery one. Um, and my wife just immediately points at me because again, they want to have the conversation about using hormonal birth control. I was like,
It's
my wife
terrible.
is a prime 30 for, you know, she was 33 when she had her second child. I was like, she's in like the prime of her life. You want to like,
Fuck
you
that
know,
up.
throw in some extra hormones and she's already super sensitive to shit. I was like, why is that the first place to go? And then again, talking about like the medical system as a whole, that's why I appreciate what, you know, our company does, is looking at it from, you know, a deeper dive, right? Really
Mhm.
getting these foundational numbers looked at over, you know, a lifetime essentially, right? You can start as early as your 30s, right? When you really start to like you know, maybe have some residual income to put towards that thing and start seeing if anything is getting out of whack.
Mhm.
And Yeah, as soon as that happened and we walked in, I was like, you know, it was like things are just constantly clicking of like key moments in my life. Like, that's interesting. Why are they going right to that? You know, like why is that like
It's how
the
they get
con-
paid, bro. Like
I
it's
know, but why is that the conventional way of doing it? Right? It's
because
like
it's fucked. That's why.
Well, that's the thing.
right.
That's the thing
That's
I
what I'm
think
saying.
we
Yeah.
talk about is in the company Synergenics we work for, and like, you know, you got your new companies coming up now, like 10x Systems, 10x Health, or like Merrick, or even like Foundation of Youth or Foundation of Life, Tony Robbins' company.
Mhm.
You have all these companies and they're trying to come at it from this angle, and it's like,
Mhm.
I grew up, my mom's she's a member services like director for Kaiser, and like I grew up in a system where Kaiser's like HMO. Right? I grew up in a system that it's like, you know, you see your doctor, it's like a 15-minute thing. I have psoriasis. I asked him about psoriasis, and I'm like, the doctor, I literally have to pay $20 to talk with the doctor. Literally, the doctor's not a specialist in this, has never worked with anyone. He pulls up a list. He's like, oh, this is what you're not supposed to do. I'm like, dude, that's on Google. You know,
He
that's
grabbed
on
it off
Google.
Google, is what he
Yeah, he
did.
grabbed that to Google. And that's like the problem where it's like, I think this is where Marcos and I are doing something right now. We're doing the PN Master Health Coach Level 2, and we're getting board certified in the next 6 months. And you realize that the healthcare system is so bloated that they're actually willing to have other people pick up the legwork that are not necessarily credentialed as a DPT or a registered dietitian, because we can bring something to the floor. We can coach behavior change. We can look at the psychology, and we are, you know, credentialed enough to actually say, hey, these are the lifestyle, nutrition, and performance, you know, metrics you need to change. Because, dude, the system is so bloated. Like, talking about testosterone for 15 minutes, I remember a buddy of mine saying as soon as he got in there, it's like, dude, it felt like a drug deal. He said, hey, you're going to take Clomid, you're going to take this and this, and that's it. And he's like, you didn't even ask me like what my lifestyle is, like how I eat,
Mhm.
what I do. Why is it always like that? And I just really think, you know, as much as the healthcare system is bloated, I do believe that, hey, you know, for the normal person, not the person making multiple six figures, like, you know, these different, you know, preventative care things, which, you know, Marcos and I do, but I think for the person that does the HMO, the Kaisers, things like that, I think it will change. I just think it needs a little bit of breath room. I think it needs to accept people from other areas, maybe get tech in there. It just needs a whole, I think it needs like a revert. It just needs like a redo or something.
Yeah. I was listening to Joe Rogan. I'm sure that right there is going to be like, oh, taboo. But they said something really interesting, and I think that this statement really resonated. We're currently teaching in a system that's not even going to allow for the skill development of, you know, the next jobs to come, right?
Yeah.
Which is effectively potentially AI utilization and understanding of like, here's what the general outcome needs to be. Here's how I would need to prompt this, and then have that AI system help me build whatever it is I needed to do in order to, and then like kind of, you know, go troubleshoot it or test it and then run code, right? And I was like, yeah, if only these guys, we're talking like, two podcasters, right? They're talking, and comedians that are talking about this idea, but they're not wrong, right? The system isn't currently set up for it. And they use the analogy of like, remember when the assembly line, because they're old enough to remember, like, oh, the assembly line and Ford and Detroit and how that all was. They would then they morph the curriculum to understand how to then become a better like line worker and be a very specialized skill set type of person. Whereas now you effectively need to be a generalist. You need to know a little bit about everything, and then how to utilize certain pieces of software, the most effective way for you to help facilitate for a team. And I was like, yeah, good luck rewriting the curriculum.
I mean, yeah, that's K through 12, bro. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
K-12,
K through 12. I mean, you're not doing coding, right? Most people don't understand logic because it's generally something that comes later in life, unless you're born with math skills. And it got me thinking, like, what will the next generation of education look like if this?
Well, that's where online, like, I think that's where like these online niche like courses. That's why courses are so great, is because you can go right to the person. Let's just say, big one is like Alex Hormozy. Hey, go and write to his course of how to acquire leads. Like, instead of going through business school for 4 years, he has 4 videos prompt that are actionable today, and that's where these courses come.
Well, you can go. I mean, you can straight up buy skills now, right? And because a lot, like if you want to learn how to copyright better, cool, $1,000, and you'll make it on your next sales page. Like you can, whatever the thing is. If you don't know how to film TikTok videos, if you don't know how to, it doesn't matter what the skill is. You can damn near buy the skill from an affordable standpoint, especially if we're comparing it to like four-year universities. Because that's been my thought for a long time now. Is like I've learned more. I'm sorry, someone would learn more going into business for themselves, completely have no idea what they're doing. Let's say you have 50 grand on the table, $50,000 for a business degree or an entrepreneur degree. I don't understand how there's a degree in entrepreneurship. I feel like that's an oxymoron. But or you can take that same 50,000 and go invest in a mentor and start your business, right? Or whatever the case is. But
you're just getting right into it,
dude. Well, because I remember when I was in school, back when I didn't know better, when I was in school, one of the classes I had to take, there was a business class, but what was stupid is, dude, they were having us like design business cards. And here, how would you design a billboard? Here's how color palettes work. And I'm like, this is worthless. It wasn't getting into hooks, copywriting, and how to, different facets of that, or personal branding or content creation, like the stuff that actually matters. Like the fact that like you got YouTubers who just know how to make content, monetize, and make hundreds of thousands or in millions of dollars shows you that so much of the world of business landscape and traditional education is just worthless. Not worthless, but unless you're going to go into like law or pre-med or that route, that's why I think you're going to see this huge fall of universities, because now it's just going to get a general education degree is not helpful at all.
Yeah, your ROI is just not worth it, right?
For like, dude, I remember back in the day when my wife and I were in college. My wife was interested in getting a degree and to be a dietitian, right? Well, we were talking with an advisor about the curriculum, and I looked down at this is just how much of a scam I feel like school is. I know it's going to piss off some people, but that's fine. We were just talking to the advisor about stuff, and I looked down at the course curriculum to be a dietitian, and I get some other classes are like going to cross pollinate, but art history and music theory was on there.
Cultural diversity is what they call it.
And so I said, hey, I'm just curious. Like, I wasn't causing a stink. I was genuinely asking, like, because I get dietitians who, like, you're going to deal with chemistry, math, and things like that. But I asked, I go, why is there an art history and music theory class? She goes, oh, well, at this university, we just like our students to be well-rounded. Here's my thing. What would happen if like you called a plumber over to your house to fix your toilet, and he said, hey, I can only fix your toilet if I can build you a $10,000 gazebo onto your offer? Or like, imagine if you sign on a client for coaching for, let's say, how much you guys charge, but then you say, oh, I also need to sell you this car because I only like my clients to have this certain style of lifestyle. Like, I want you to drive a BMW.
It's
ridiculous. It doesn't make sense.
Thing. Yeah.
And you're paying for it.
Oh, yeah. I know. I paid for, I had to take a women's studies course, right? For gender gender cultural studies or whatever it was. Then I had to
Same.
take history of rock and roll, which I got a lot out of because I appreciate music. So it's like
Sure.
there are worse things, right?
But for what degree? What degree was this for?
Well, my undergrad is actually, well, I was going for engineering at the time, but I still had to take a history of rock and roll class for a music credit effectively. Then you also need like a foreign language. It's like, all right, well, you know, I also dabbled in coding and like computer science. I was like, that one was more important and more, you know, there's just certain things that are cross-listed incorrectly. And also too, when a student knows more than a counselor at a higher education, when it comes to the courses that are, you know, required for my degree,
It's dumb.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And I ran into that multiple times. I would go into there and have to advocate. I was like, why am I doing this? This was the exact same cross listing at the same higher institution in Nevada. But they're like, we can't give you credit for it. And I was like, that's
What?
BS. Literally, it's the same number class. It's the same. Look at the written thing here. And they wouldn't give it to me. And I was like, whatever. So like, what is it? They're like, it's an elective credit now. I was like, all right. So I ended up taking differential equations, like three different variations, like 3 different times. You know, and
It's
it's
a
like,
scam, bro. Like that's why it's all a scam.
It really is. I really think like I got my degree in exercise science. I was thinking of getting my master's and stuff, but luckily like sometimes your reputation precedes you or your work ethic precedes you. So luckily for like certain things I didn't need to get it. And like when you look at your master's in physiology or like master's and all that stuff, just a lot of like lab stuff, a lot of like studies and things. And it's like, well, do you want to be a person that is in studies? Or I was at this time a crossroads of like, do I go down my entrepreneurial path? Do I start managing gyms? Do I start, doing different things? And you kind of start realizing like, what is the point of that education? If, like you said, hey, I can start buying these skills. Hey, there are these people, like you said earlier in the podcast, like this person's dumber than me. Dumber, right? Yet they're 10xing their money. What is it they're doing? I think these people could be dumber. I'll just put that in quotations for those listening, but they know the patterns of success. They know the patterns of how to do things. And like, I think one of the biggest things in business, like for example, you're talking about making these boards and making these cards. It's like, dude, you could just delegate that now online.
True.
Hey, 5,000 for $50. And now you have business cards. Hey, you need a billboard? They'll do it for you. You just have to pay.
Well, but the other piece too is fast forward, let's say a 4-year degree, bro, the world of business is different in a year. Like if you think about like, dude, like 4 years ago was the iPhone even around 4 years ago? I saw this giant graph of, it was like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, all the things that have been invented in this short period of time. And it was like the iPhone, Uber, all these major things that we run with like crazy on our day to day that is pivotal for running business in this century, but they weren't here 3, 4, 5 years ago. So the fact that like someone's like, I'm going to get my marketing degree or my business degree, bro, marketing degree isn't teaching you how to make Instagram reels. It's not teaching you how to create, how to get leads, nurture those leads, present an irresistible offer to those leads and fulfill those leads. Like the fact that like we could all teach probably teach a better framework for running a business than any 4-year degree could in a day. You know what I mean? That you could actually take action on right now and monetize by the end of the week. It's no different. It's why it's so frustrating.
Well, it's where I looked at again 1 year in like business for myself officially. I've worked for, ironically enough, I worked for Jason, right? So the guy who put on that event, right? And then a multitude of other companies along the way at this point. The biggest thing that I've learned in then taking everything under my own power to learn all the little nuances of it all is that you learn so much about like the structure of the system and how, again, the education that you spent 4 years on doesn't prepare. You're woefully unprepared, and you're constantly underprepared for everything that then comes the year after that. Like, how long it's taken me to even understand like a general principle of taxes.
Right.
I'm like 10 years into it, and I'm like, they're like, no. By the way, this is how this actually works. I was like, what? Why? He's like, well, it's like that's why you have me, like, the accountant, right? It's like, why do I have to save $10,000 of tax credits for next year? He's like, you just can't use it all right now. I was like, says who? Right? Like, I would rather just take all the cash right now. It's like, no, the government's going to hold you a credit for next year. Like, okay, that's bizarre, right? I'm playing the game, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking for opportunities that help me, quote, save money. But then it's like at every step, there's like, well, no, there's governing bodies here. There's a governor, literally, like it's governing the amount that you could potentially get back. Last year, my wife was technically a stay-at-home mom, and she was generating, starting a business. But because she showed a loss in her business, she was a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, so we lost out on a child tax care credit. I'm like, what? What? They're like, yeah, in the eyes of the government, that your wife was at home all day. I was like, well, tell that to her, because she was trying to bust her ass off trying to figure out how to figure out
Sure.
the business. You know,
It's crazy, man.
it's
The
been
whole mess, the whole gambit is just crazy. So
yeah. But you're
Yeah.
right though about like, again, teaching a course or teaching what we have to offer, right? When I started to realizing, starting connecting some dots of like, like why not me? Why not me be the person to go into a school and start having a conversation with, we'll say young adults, right? We'll say high school kids about their food, about their fitness, about their mind or their focus, right? About how their finances actually are going to work, right? And also about like the family structure that they're going to need to have if they don't currently have that being nurtured, right? All those
Yeah.
things are massively important, but it just takes one person to be, the liaison or the person
right.
that's supposed to get them thinking about it. Hey, like you just said, business is ever evolving and ever changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the biggest thing right now is, like you said, like the reels edits and the cuts and the jumps and the this and that. And like literally, that everybody watching something has, we'll say social media ADD, right? So if you can grab their attention properly, that you have an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
potentially keep them going. And
Yeah.
to me, I was like, I wasn't ready for that. And in the time from last year, it's about my birthday last year is when I was out of another company and then starting my own. So almost a year into it, social media has massively shifted, right? And that paradigm shift is because guess what happened? Obviously, TikTok was taking market share, and Instagram or Meta was like, hey, we need to find a way to like bring them back, right? And so here we go. Now we play this whole new game. It wasn't Reels, it was kinda, but now it's like that's the only thing. It's the only way to get anywhere for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Attention is the new oil, man. Attention is the new oil of this decade, dude. And I think I mean, like, that's why we're doing this, right? The podcast, my mission in this world, kind of like what Tom Bilyeu said at the coaching con, make the mission and the goal untouchable, just untouchable. His goal and metabolic disease. That's pretty hard, that's pretty hard. But for Marcos and I, it's like, just keep bringing conversations about all pillars of health and wellness to help change somebody.
Yeah.
That's a limitless, infinite game goal, because we don't know where this takes us. Like, we're having conversations about identity and like the landscape of education and business. Maybe tomorrow we'll have another conversation about like finances, like, or taxes or fitness or whatever. And it's just, I feel like, with that said, it's like you have to grab the attention, whether it's long, medium, short form, and you have to. And there's no other way of doing it other than actually getting punched in the face and doing it 1,000 times and then just realizing, oh, these are the way it works. This is how you pivot. It's a day in, day out game.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, and look, here's the deal. The market dictates your quality, right? I think sometimes people are like, I have the perfect thing. And it's like, the market don't say so. They don't say so. They don't resonate with it. You gotta change your tune. You gotta change your message. I don't know. But yeah.
I agree.
Jared, you mentioned like, your upbringing, and then quote you mentioned school a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to a university after high school, or have you all been just kind of figuring it out as you've gone along?
So with that's the thing is with my stuff. So I was homeschooled like K through 12. Like I was that awkward homeschool kid. And then like, to be real, I don't even know if my like high school like diploma like is actually legitimate. I have no idea. Like my mom signed something, but I don't know. And then when I did go to a college, I ended up like there's no way I was going to a big like 4-year university out here. Because I'd never seen the inside of I've never attended the inside of a school, like, and I'm like 18, you know what I mean? So, and so I went to like a community college, but dude, I was so far behind. I had to drop a class or two every semester, and it took me for 4 years to get a 2-year degree in like kinesiology or whatever. Like, it was crazy. But then that was when I started I started my business. And then I'm like, well, this is dumb. I'm not going to fucking go back to school. Cause about that time I thought at that time I thought about, I was going to go be a physical therapist. Cause like, that's what I feel like it's what everyone with an exercise science degree does. Is they're like, oh, I'm going to do this and go be a physical therapist. But then, I was really gonna go for it, but then it was right around that time they said all physical therapists had to have PhDs, and I didn't.
The DPT,
Well, and like, to me, logic, it didn't make sense. Wait, I'm gonna go 200 grand plus in debt for $100,000 job. This doesn't even make logical sense to me. And right around that,
too, Yeah, like here's the thing too. Like when you did that, I was doing like internship hours, and it's like I was watching how it's done. I was going to Kaiser, I was doing like internships, and it's like people in business, people in hospitals. It's like in office, out of office. You still got to run your own business if you're a physical therapist too sometimes. And it's like I was seeing like business practices is like being like a sinking ship, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, oh, this doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah. So it just didn't feel right. And right around that time, I found out I love personal training, and I basically became a trainer while I was in school, trying to just schedule shit between classes. And then that ended up being really successful. I built an entire like 200 session a month training business. It was just me, and then did that for like 5 years. And then transitioned. I found out this thing called Instagram. So I started posting online, jumped my following way up, built my online business off of Instagram originally, and then just been scaling ever since. And so, yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, I think it's just a matter of, like you said in the beginning, you'll always be a victim of your circumstances if you play the victim card, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be willing to just kind of put in the time to learn and figure out where your skill set actually is. But
Sure.
so many people look at it like you'd mentioned, that security blanket of the 9 to 5, or the security blanket of a certain level of income, and putting back some of the ambition or desires that you may have, underneath the skin. So I definitely feel like, personally, I wish I would have had more like hands-on experience, like almost like a vocation, like a vocational school where it's like you're learning something that's
Sure.
hands-on, like that, as my upbringing, because everything was like, just go to the next class and go to the next thing and the next thing in school. But even to me, so my background is like graduated valedictorian, right? And even to me, I was like, why am I going to go to school somewhere where I got to pay 50 grand, where I don't even know what I'm going to be making potentially, like what my
Yep.
earnings potential is yet, because I don't even know what I want to do. So I just
Mm-hmm.
stayed in state. I mean, I went to a community college for a year, knocked out some prereqs, went to the next, school up in Reno, and I was getting paid to go to school. I was like, this makes sense. Like, let me leverage making money with the scholarships and the grants that I'm given, right? And ever since then, certain people will be like, oh, well, you're so underutilized. And this is actually a conversation that my uncle would have to my mom, like, your son's not in his potential. And I'm like, I feel like I'm way ahead now, because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like what was like the common thing, or the thing that's always like, we'll call it the Disney story, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, it's this fabled story of, you go to big university, you
Yeah.
network there, and you magically land these positions. It's like, I grew up in Vegas. It's always who you know. Like, you
Yeah.
know, yeah. So leverage
Completely.
the opportunity network you have more than anything.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, we are kind of coming up on time. I wanted to be respectful of it for you, Jared. Jared, what are you excited about that's coming up for you in your business or your life? Where can people follow you? Where can they find you? And just any closing messages, man.
Yeah. What am I excited about right now? For us, it's just keep growing the business and keep helping more people. Like, as kind of cliche as that sound, like, just I just hired like another guy. He starts today actually. I have a call with him after this, and then just keep refining what we do. Like, I have this giant course. Like, you want to talk about like buying skills? I'm about to drop a ton more modules into one of my courses when people are like trying to buy those skills. And then just keep refining all of that. Right now we're in the middle of scaling my podcast. So if those that like kind of this message, my podcast is called Dieting from the Inside Out. And we're in the middle of scaling that right now. So been hitting some milestones and just running hard with that. As far as where people can find me, I hang out every day on Instagram and TikTok. So at realjaredhamilton on both of those, or go follow my show, Dieting from the Inside Out. It's everywhere. Or the podcast site is dietingfromtheinsideout.com, because now we just wanted to have a hub where everything is at, because now we even transcribe all of our articles into blogs. So for those that don't really enjoy like listening to a longer episode and would rather just catch the keynotes, we have all that in a blog fashion on the site. So, but otherwise that's it.
Awesome. Marcus, want to close this out, man?
Yeah, I got to work on this, right? Jared, thanks for your time yet again, man. I definitely feel like people can grasp a tremendous amount of value. I love that you just mentioned like adding more into the, like, I'm assuming it's like, hey, like, here's additional 10 modules, right, to people that are
Yes.
already in your existing network.
Yep.
I really resonate with that. That's something that like is near and dear to my heart. The thing I'm creating even for a challenge for people is then It's almost like you buy one, you give one, that kind of model. Like you buy one for you, the adult, and you're giving one to a kid, right? Because I really feel like, I feel like people are more apt to be like, well, I feel good about like giving it away in addition to receiving that education. And even though it's nothing that's maybe not written a million times elsewhere on the internet, at least then it's just somewhere else to give to a kid, and maybe they resonate with my voice in particular, right? So I love that. So thanks for spending the time with us. Follow
Appreciate
Jared on all of his social channels. Super easy to find. You search Jared Hamilton on Instagram, and he's the one that has like 60,000 followers. So you've worked really hard for that. We'll have all of his information linked below. So guys, thank you for listening in to another episode of The Macro Perspective. Follow us, comment on what you liked, what you disliked, things that we want to work on, things you want to, see answered in the future with people. And hopefully we can have Jared back and have, all of our first interviews are more of just casual conversation. We can maybe go into his dieting from the inside out approach. Whatever it is, we will go from there. And thanks again for listening.